my truck bone stock pulling our camper, which weighs 7,500 pounds, it's a 30-foot travel trailer. At 70 mile an hour on the interstate going uphill, I could hit 1,300 degrees, no problem, which is, I find, quite frankly, unbelievable, because the stock truck shouldn't do that. But, and they designed that from the factory, but yeah. As far as the 3 current diesels out, the 6.7, the 6.6 Duramax, and the 6.7 Cummins.
Yeah.
What do you think's best?
That's a tough one. I'd have to go with the LML Duramax.
Caleb's a Duramax fan, in case you hadn't picked up. I think the LML Duramax is a great motor too. I think probably the 6.7 Cummins has proven itself a little bit more, but I know
it's just underpowered though.
Yeah, I mean,
compared to what it's going against.
We say underpowered. It's like 350 horsepower and 750 foot-pounds of torque or something like that. But then you've got Ford and Chevy, which have decided to have some sort of race, and they're going up 400 horsepower. I mean, they're making race trucks out of these. I've never driven a 6.7 Power Stroke, and I kind of would like to. I'd like to throw it on a trailer and see how it actually tows. Because, I mean, getting down the road's one thing, but hitting a hill and seeing if it tows is another. Mm-hmm. But I think that we're looking for the wrong direction as far as fuel in America at this moment. You know, we're hunting for all these alternative energy sources, but what people don't get is like, okay, let's throw ethanol at cars. It's going to jack up your corn prices really high.
Yeah.
I know that's making it really hard for us. And ethanol's hard on engines. If it's not designed to run in ethanol, they're going to have trouble. It kind of tends to gum up stuff. But I mean, let's look at Europe for a little while. Europe's been running diesels for forever, and they still are. But Europe doesn't have the emission standards that America does. And I mean, okay, I'm a farmer. I'm all about taking care of the planet, but I mean, it's just gotten stupid. I'm sorry, we're putting DPFs on tractors now.
Yeah, and DEFs.
Yeah. That's a maintenance nightmare waiting to happen. I mean,
who wants to call the dealer every time you have to service your equipment? That's just insane, you know.
It's stupid. But I totally lost my train of thought. What happens,
after all, it is 2 in the morning by now.
It is 2 in the morning, and that's what happens when I get to talking about DEFs. But here in America, we've thrown all this stupid junk on our diesels, and it's like, okay, we wonder why we get bad fuel economy. Well, alright, I'm going to throw this as an example. My sister has a 2006 Volkswagen Jetta. The engine, it's the BRM, which they had a few issues with, the camshafts and stuff like that. But she's got almost 170,000 miles on that car with 0 problems. And I took it to Nashville this summer, and we did all city driving, and I have an extremely heavy foot. And I averaged 41 miles to the gallon in the city with her little Jetta. Now, the EPA numbers, I've not driven the new 2-liter TDI that's out now, but I know they've got like 50 more horsepower, I believe. But their fuel economy is no better than basically the gas version. Why? They have a DPF. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the DPF, what it does is it basically collects soot, and then when the thing fills up,
explodes.
Yeah, more or less. Somebody's like, oh, let's dump raw fuel in it, make it get really, really, really hot, and then burn it out. Well, that raw fuel is where you get 9 miles to the gallon out of your diesel. Case in point, my 6-liter here, in town, if I drive it like it should be driven and not like I like to drive it, it gets about 15. On the highway, I've seen as high as 22 out of it. 6.4 Power Stroke, which I have test driven, according to the little LIO meter in the dash, I was getting 9.6 miles to the gallon in town and 11 on the highway. Now, in that motor's defense, that's one of the most powerful engines I have ever driven. That thing was insane. But the fuel economy is just not there. And for me, I don't know that I could do that. I'm looking for other means of transportation now because I can't afford to drive. But I think we're looking in the wrong direction as far as fuel.
I think we should look towards diesel, but without the emission standards, if the government would cut back and look toward, like I said earlier, of being more efficient rather than trying to save the planet. If you be more efficient, you can save the planet, but they just don't realize that. As you know, farmers have always tried to be efficient. The most efficient tractor is the best, really, you know, back in the old days and stuff. So, I don't know, the government's just got their panties in wad, really, you know. It's kind of
got
like
some people who've gone out of control.
Yeah, they haven't really put that many restrictions on gasoline engines either, have they? So,
well, the gasoline restrictions hit back in the 70s.
And even then, it wasn't that much.
Yeah. Well, okay, like, we've got a 1977 Ford Thunderbird. 400 cubic inch V8, and it's rated at 170 horsepower because it's smog related. But they got through that, and we've figured out in many ways how to make it better. So, yeah. I think
that sums it up really almost.
Yeah. I mean, okay, let's look at this. Back in the 80s when they came out, we're going to discount the 5.7 diesel that GM made into a boat anchor.
Yeah.
But the 6.2 diesel came out in 1980. Early 80s. I think the 6.9 came out in 83 or 4. And Mercedes came out with a bunch of diesels, like the 5 and 6 cylinders that came in the like 300Es and stuff like that. Volkswagen, the 1.6 and 1.6 turbo. They came out with those when times were hard in the 80s because they got insane fuel economy. They weren't real powerful, they were noisy as all get out, and yeah, if you left them outside in the wintertime in the cold, they probably were going to be harder than heck to start. But you got fuel economy that was unmatched by anything. But there's no restrictions on them, they're how a diesel should be. And that kind of went up until diesels started getting real popular, I'd say with the introduction of probably the second generation Ram.
Yeah.
In 94, when the 12 valve with the P7100 pump came out, people are like, oh, this is a serious truck. And then Ford stepped up the game in 94 and a half with the Power Stroke. And Chevy really, God bless them.
Behind until 01.
I mean, until 01 when the LB7 Duramax came out, they
were good, reliable trucks.
I'm not going to knock the 6.5 because somebody will start a comment war with me.
It's just...
I'm not a fan of the 6.5. I think it's a great motor, but dear Lord, they make no power, and they sound like they have a terrible internal problem. I'm not a huge fan of the indirect injection. But that being said, the 6.5 got great mileage.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, more the cleanest burning thing. But Caleb's hit the nail on the head. Find a way to make the diesels more efficient. And I'm a John Deere fan, I'm going to go on and say this, but I'm going to brag on Kubota a little bit. We've got an 07 Kubota M7040. It met the 2007 Kubota emission, or the United States emission standards with no DPF, no DEF, nothing. It's just direct injected, it's got no turbo. Now, later on when the stricter emissions happened, they still had to retard the timing or something on them, and they've thrown a turbo on them to make up for the lack of power on the timing that they've had to retard so it won't feel so doggy. But they're a clean engine. Kubota's got it right as far as that goes. But I'm not a Kubota fan. I mean, we've got 2 of them. They've been great, but that's a whole nother video. Parts are killer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think we just kind of wanted to share our opinions and maybe have a little vent session with each other.
Yeah, like along with trucks, but then like the city people here need to think about what about the Volkswagen Jetta diesel, the TDI. That's still a great car. You know, the older ones get good fuel economy. I wouldn't mind having one. I'm 15. I'm looking for a truck. I'd like a bone stock, you know, that hasn't been abused or anything, you know, or chipped. I'd like to do my own performance later on and stuff.
Caleb and I are planning on opening up a shop together just for giggles, because it'd be fun.
Yeah.
When he says older Volkswagen, 2006 and before, they're great.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like,
yeah,
those get good mileage. I wouldn't mind having like a 2000 or something, just, you know,
with
kind of for a
5-speed.
beater. Yeah, manual, just for good fuel economy.
I mean, you could put 300,000 miles on one of those cars, and yeah, the car may fall apart, but the motor's still going to go crazy strong. Just keep your timing belt changed. Again, maintenance, 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 maintenance.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons a lot of people in America have strayed away from diesel, and I'm going to pick on our own country, is they're snotty.